We're joined by Dan Kelly from the Canadian Federation of Independent Business and Alan Richards, a Canadian privacy lawyer. Thanks, both of you, for joining me. Mr. Kelly, I'd like to start with you. I know businesses must see the temptation here. Across Canada, businesses have been ordered shut for months, and I know they're desperate to reopen, and vaccine passports could make that possible. What are you hearing from your members about this issue?
Well, look, I did some media interviews about the prospect of allowing international tourists to come to Canada with a vaccine credential. And my head was ripped off by angry business owners who were just absolutely unhappy with the idea that there would be two sets of rights to come to Canada for foreign tourists. So it's an incredibly controversial idea. But look, I think there are many business owners that are really desperate right now to be able to reopen, and those that are open to stay open. And so they're looking for any other measure rather than lockdowns to try to be able to maintain some semblance of normalcy. So, for example, a catering company or a wedding photographer, they're absolutely desperate to get open. And I think for some of them, the idea of at least having a credential that would allow some guests to attend an event, to go to the theater, to travel, they would welcome that idea because the alternative is complete closure. But for many others, and including many other employers, they're telling me that the prospect of creating two tiers of Canadians is just something that they do not want to do. And of course, there's a host of administrative issues that come along with it.
Well, I don't envy the position you're in, Mr. Kelly, dealing with these competing interests. Mr. Richards, on vaccine passports, I want to ask you, we have charter rights, we have fundamental freedoms. Do vaccine passports implicate those fundamental rights?
Vaccine passports certainly touch on our charter rights and beyond. They're at the high level, there's charter issues of mobility rights, as well as that of security of the person. Privacy rights are certainly implicated at both the federal and provincial levels, as well as huge issues of equality issues under anti-discrimination legislation and human rights codes. And we would be trading some fairly important rights in exchange for the promise of safety, quite similar to what we saw in the post 9/11 period.
Now, Mr. Kelly, can you comment on the difference between the international vaccine passports versus domestic? In Israel, which I mentioned in my opening, these passports allow people to participate in civil society. And I know a lot of your members, I'm sure, don't like having to enforce all kinds of new government measures. What would having this new measure on top of existing health measures mean for some of those members?
It really does depend on what it would replace. Look, I think if the choice were vaccine passports versus being fully open to serve whomever you'd like, the idea of vaccine passports would be ditched in 2 seconds by any business owner. But if the prospect is full business shutdown, not an ability to serve a single customer, or the ability to serve some customers that are able to demonstrate a credential, or to have staff that are able to demonstrate some form of credential, that then becomes a bit of a different ballgame for many of these firms. Look, where I see this going, the Prime Minister's already thrown a couple buckets of cold water on the idea of vaccine passports for domestic application. But the idea for international travel, I suspect that there's a lot of buzz and activity happening around the world. So if we want to have a chance of somebody coming to Canada this summer and staying, an American tourist to come to Canada this summer, vaccine passports may be something that is considered by our government.
And let's just follow up on that after these commercial messages.